and welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire. My name is Dan Wise. I'm your host for Senior Speak New Hampshire. I'm a volunteer for AARP, which helps to support this show. Many of us are in the fortunate position of being grandparents, and it's great to see your grandkids regularly, but not constantly. For the most part, my visits with my grandkids are scheduled or planned in advance, and it leads to quality time, unhampered by errands and emergencies and things like that. I often say that being a grandparent is kind of like having chocolate cake without the calories. But in a lot of situations, in a large number of situations in New Hampshire, there are grandparents or aunts and uncles, or even close family friends who suddenly find themselves in the situation of raising their children's children or their nieces or nephews for one reason or another. And it can be quite an arresting situation and obviously a life-changing situation where you have to do the right thing for the children, but it really upsets and turns around your life completely. And there is some support out there for that sort of thing. But first, I want to show you a video about a program called the Kinship Navigator program, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to run the video right now, and then we're going to talk with Beth Maltzy and Joan Volk from the Kinship Navigator program here in.
If you had told me when I was 50 I would be bringing up a year-old child, I would have thought, I can't do that. There was puzzles, and there was those toys that make noises that you ride on, and oh my God, doll houses and doll tents. What was preceding all that is the trauma of having a grown son who was in the throes of addiction. We were in the dark. I had no idea how to go about the legalities of guardianship. I just marched myself into the courtroom carrying this infant baby. I said, I need guardianship of my granddaughter. We felt like an island. Nobody needs to do this alone.
Imagine if you were in the position of your cute baby grandson or granddaughter, or that inscrutable preteen that you see growing up suddenly became your responsibility. Hopefully you could reach out for some help for that. And there is, in the state of New Hampshire, there's a whole network of kinship navigators who can help provide a whole variety of supports and services for folks who find themselves in that situation. As the video says, there's something like 12,000 families that are in that situation. And Joan Volk, who works here at the Family Resource Center here in Concord. Mm-hmm. You are a parent in that situation. Is that right?
Yes, I've been
a grandparent in that
I've
situation.
been raising my granddaughter since she was 7, and she's almost 16. Mm-hmm. So I've had her that whole time, and I have adopted her. So,
mm-hmm. And then you work in this program here in the state too.
Yes, I used to be a home visitor before I got my granddaughter, and then because I was raising her and the Kinship Navigator position came available, I kind of was, encouraged to take that because I have that real life experience of mm-hmm. knowing what grandparents go through and trying to find resources when they don't even know what they need or what they're looking for. Yeah. So that has really helped.
And Beth, you are the family support specialist or the Kinship Navigator here in Concord?
Yes, I
So-
actually took over for Joan when she became the Family Resource Center coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that position entail? What can you, what do you
Well-
guys offer?
It's a lot of resources and a lot of supports for families. We do home visiting, so we see people weekly. It is an open-ended, free, voluntary program that anybody can join if they have a kinship child in their home.
Wow, wow. And how do people generally find out about it?
A lot of people find out word of mouth. We do have a website, it's waypointnh.org. All of our programs are listed there. It's not just kinship, there's a lot of different programs Waypoint offers. And some people just find out through our support group. They come to a support group and then they think, oh, maybe I do need some supports other than just coming to a support group, so.
So the support groups are those here in Concord. How often do they meet?
It's once a month. It's on the second Monday of the month at the YMCA. They're a great host. They all have childcare ready and available while the adults are meeting in a separate room.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what are some of the issues that get talked about?
Oh boy, so many different issues. Anything from legal issues that they're trying to figure out, should I adopt? Is guardianship the right way to go? To end-of-life planning. We do offer a class too at the YMCA called Parenting a Second Time Around.
Pasta, right?
Yep,
Yes.
right. We do sometimes serve pasta. But it is a good group of people and everybody learns from each other for sure.
Yeah. So let's go through some of these kinds of issues that you might come up with. First of all, you find yourself, maybe your child is not able to raise the child or something like that, and they come into your home. Do you have to go to court and become a guardian, or
Well,
what happens?
That's the
That's
thing.
one way.
Right, there's so many different ways. Some people have DCYF involvement. A child has been removed from the parents and now they're with the grandparents in a kinship situation. There's guardianship, there's adoption, there's also something called fictive kin. It is a person that is very well known to the family and they have taken in the child for a period of time while things get figured out with their biological family.
Yeah.
They're like family, but they're just not blood related.
Yeah, my uncle was in that situation. His parents died. My grandparents died when he was still, I think he was in high school, and very close neighbors of my grandparents took him in basically for high school, and that was, at least that was not that many
Yeah.
years, but I'm sure that happens.
It happens a lot, really.
Happens a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if anybody looks in their family tree, they probably see some example of this in the situation. So guardianship is one way. Does it sometimes happen that there isn't really a guardianship, but is it something you guys recommend?
Sometimes it's an informal thing, like if the parent needs to go to rehab or to the hospital, the grandparents or aunts or uncles might help. And in that case, the parent just signs a paper saying they're taking care of my kids, but there's no formal legal thing in place. And that
Yeah.
can happen just for a little while.
Yeah.
Or then it can turn into like a guardianship type thing if it goes on for a while.
Yeah, and then you've got maybe the school situation where you've got to communicate with the school
Right.
district about who's taking care of the child now, who's responsible for the child.
Yep, yep.
Then there's the parenting challenges of parenting a child that's from another generation that wasn't grown, what kind of, do you see any issues with that? There must be issues of things like just getting used to, electronics use and things like that. Are there other examples of sort of generational gaps in information or of child, what's happening with child rearing these days?
The lingo is crazy. Like, they use these abbreviations, and my granddaughter calls me bruh and dude. I'm like, it's not appropriate. But for her, it's normal. So, yeah.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, that must be pretty crazy. And then you've also got the child's original parents that are in the relationship to some degree or another, and that must be something that gets talked about a lot, and trying to figure that out, because every situation's going to be unique.
Yeah. And if the grandparents have gotten guardianship because they just don't feel like the parents are doing a good job or whatever, that causes a lot of tension. When DCYF is involved, they will help the parents have supervised visits with the children and make sure that the parents do counseling or, whatever it might be, get into treatment or whatever. But when it's the parents getting guardianship, it's kind of they're just in charge, and it can cause a lot of hostility between the parents and the grandparents.
And
So it can be really hard.
Right, and sometimes with the co-parenting, they really have to be on the same page, which causes a lot of problems.
Yeah. Just as we see that with divorces and
Right.
family separations that happen, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
So how this PASTA course, does that deal with those issues?
It does, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different issues it could be.
How long is the course?
It's about 8 weeks.
Okay, yeah, great. And another thing that I think Joan and I talked about too was there's maybe some grieving involved in the grandparents or the kinship people that your life has changed, and maybe you also are grieving that your child is not fulfilling the role that you expected them to fulfill. Does that come up in the beginning, or when does that?
It shows
when
up
do people hit?
differently at different stages. In the beginning, it's a little grief, and then there's resentment. Then you go through the process of grieving, and then there could be a hump that they get over, and they realize it's going to be like this for a while. So let's make the best of it, and let's do the best for the child that's in my care.
Do you also? I think there's sometimes some financial support that you folks are able to provide. Is that's sort of on an emergency basis? What are the kinds of things that you ended up helping folks with?
Right, so
that way?
sometimes it's a safety issue in the home that we have to help with, locks and things like that. Sometimes it's resources like books for the family that really needs the help in understanding trauma. It could be anything like that. And there's a certain pot of money that's available. It's not a huge amount, but it helps when there's emergencies. There's also things that we do for resources and supports, like budgeting, helping families that maybe this is a situation they find themselves in, and they didn't have the money to take the child in, but now they have this issue and they have to deal with it. So we deal with budgeting and helping them figure things out.
Yeah.
Well, and helping them get hooked in with resources. Like, there is cash available through the state for guardians and grandparents. So, letting them know that this is available, and they may call, and people have said, well, you're over income, you don't qualify, but that's not the case. And just to be able to steer them in that right direction. So, it's not a whole lot of money, but it's enough to help with clothing and food and that sort of thing, which, if the kids weren't with them, if the kids weren't with them, they'd be in foster care, and that would cost the state a lot more money. So really helping them get hooked in with that is really crucial.
Well, that's great so is this program primarily funded by the state or by federal money? Where does the money mostly come from?
Yeah, right now, I mean, the grant is changing. It used to be that the New Hampshire Children's Trust had the money for this program, and it's going to be changing to the state. They're kind of putting it under the umbrella of family support and home visiting, and so the money will come through the state for, the Kinship Navigators and that pot of money that Beth is able to help. Sometimes she can help with an electric bill or a car repair or something, daycare or something like that.
Yeah, and Waypoint, which I used to know as Child and Family Services. I don't know how long ago the name changed, but that agency that you work for, Waypoint, right? And
yeah.
Waypoint is contracted to do it here, and then there are other organizations elsewhere in the state that are doing it in different parts of the state.
Yep, Waypoint has it here, Nashua, Manchester, Upper Valley, and then other agencies like Lakes Region Family Resource Center has it in the Lakes region. All kinds of different agencies that do similar work that we do.
Yeah, and do you contract with the state? Does Waypoint contract with the state to have it all over the state then? Is that through HHS? Because I know it's on the HHS website, and there was someone I spoke to from HHS that seems to coordinate overall in the state. And it's, in a way, it's child abuse prevention. It's parenting. It's parenting support that, maybe prevents something. So it's great that we have that available.
Well, and it's great that you have relatives stepping up to help prevent that too.
Yeah. Before I know, Joan, you have to go, but I wanted just one last thing I want to ask you about when you, if I can, when you first took your granddaughter in, and she was 7, is that?
Yeah.
What were some of the first things that were, oh my gosh, how I hadn't even thought about how to deal with that? What were some of the unanticipated issues that you experienced?
Well, just the trauma that she had gone through affected her a lot. And so helping her with emotional regulation. She also has sensory processing disorder, so like keeping her senses calm so that she doesn't flip out when she gets itchy after a shower or something like that. There was a lot that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot, but the trauma is the number one thing that has really affected her. And, honestly, she's doing so well.
Oh, that's great.
It's just really, I'm really grateful to see how she's grown and gotten through all of that she's gotten through.
Yeah. How many kids did you raise
I
originally?
raised 3 adults, and now I'm on a
Now
15-year-old.
15-year-old. Wow. Yeah.
Bruh, it's brain.
Well, congratulations on that, and
Thank
Joan,
you.
thanks for sitting in.
Yeah, thanks for having
we'll
me.
we'll pick things up in a minute.
Okay.
Picking up back again with Beth Maltzy.
Yes.
Maltzy. Okay. Now, a big part of what you do is home visits with folks who are raising kin, let's say. What are some of the biggest issues that you find that you've
Well,
deal with folks?
I think the biggest issue is all of a sudden they have an extra body in the house, and they didn't have the money to handle that when they first did it. And they're finding that they suddenly are down with their budget, and they're trying to figure out life with an extra person in the home, whether it's food. We all know how grocery prices have gone up, way up.
And the way kids eat.
Exactly. Depends on if you have a teenager or little ones. But yeah, so some of the other things are trauma. These kids are coming from a traumatic background in a lot of cases. The people that have taken them in are not trauma informed, don't understand why kids' behaviors are acting up. All of a sudden, they are facing some pretty difficult challenges. So some of the things I do is help with trying to help them understand trauma in the first place, and why kids may act in certain ways, and why they may have behaviors.
Yeah, that must be tough. And also, I bet that also interacts with what's happening with kids going to school or daycare or things like that.
Right. They have issues at daycare, they have issues at school, some have IEPs, and a lot of people don't know what an IEP is because they've never raised a child that had one.
Yeah.
So they need to be informed on what they are, how they work. They may need an advocate there with them in the room to help them understand what's going on, or take notes, or ask questions, or prompt them. The Parent Information Center is another place that we send people because they're well-versed in IEPs and 504s,
Yeah.
and can easily explain before the meeting happens what's going to happen at this.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, an IEP is an individualized education plan, and that's also commonly known as special education. And special education has a wide range of things that services that they can provide. And a 504 is a sort of a lesser version of special ed, but it's still services that that schools will provide for extra help,
Right.
or for specialized kind of therapy
Yes.
in school, designed to help the child succeed in the classroom and with the academic program. And excuse me. And so you can't be the spokesperson for the parent, but you can help, as you said, facilitate some of the questions that maybe they weren't thinking of.
Right.
Or weren't aware of.
Yes.
Things that they might be available to them. There's also, I don't know if there's some legislation, and we're recording this in early 2026, and there's some legislation in the state legislature on providing, making it a little easier for kinship or for older adults who are raising kids to qualify for childcare subsidies and things
Right.
like that without a work requirement, which would apply to younger parents. And we hope that the legislature looks kindly on this kind of support services, because obviously the people who are taking on these children are providing not only a great service to those kids, but to the community, to the state, and saving foster care expenses, or even worse, other
Right.
kinds of things. So one of the things, though, that with older adults being parents again, is that something might happen to them. And is that something that you folks talk about or try to get people to think about? Because, boy, that's a tough one.
It is very tough to bring up to people. Excuse me. A lot of people have never thought about that before, They simply want to help. They might not necessarily look that far down the road, and sometimes that thought will cross their mind, what if something happens to me? And we have to help them process that, and there are not a lot of resources out there to help people figure that out later in life, to do wills. It costs money to do a will, and a lot of people think, well, just because I have told all my family what I want, it doesn't make it a legal binding contract. So
Yeah.
we try to help people understand that process, if not do a will. So.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I remember when we were raising our kids and someone recommended that we have substitute, have in the will, who would take care of our kids if we were unable to do that?
Right.
If we both died in a plane crash on our vacation or something like that. And I remember we didn't want to have our grandparents, we didn't want to saddle them, but we all had siblings. My wife and I both had siblings, so we picked the best of the most reliable of our siblings. And the really funny part was that the lawyer said, you don't have to ask them. You don't have to ask them. You can just designate them. And we thought that was a great idea, that we didn't have to bring up that question.
That's dangerous.
But we knew who we were picking, and unfortunately, they didn't have to step in. But it's something that all parents, whether they're kinship
Right.
caregivers or their parents, need to be thinking about, is what would happen if I
Right.
was not able to do this.
Mhm.
And it might just be a temporary disability or an illness or that sort of thing.
Right.
But I'm really glad that I came across this program and that we could feature it on Senior Speak, because it's amazing that this is out there and available. And I guess I mean, you feel like enough people don't know about it, right?
Yes.
You don't have an
absolutely.
advertising budget, do you?
No. We have a lot of social media, and we do have a website, so it's waypointnh.org. Can always contact them and say, hey, I'm interested in kinship navigation. How do I sign up for that?
Yeah. How do you find, and you might know of someone, a friend of yours who is in that situation, or might be thinking about that situation and thinking, things are not going well and we want to help out, but it's such a big responsibility to take on. It's nice to know that there are some resources and some supports you can access anywhere in the state. There are Waypoint has Kinship Navigator programs in the southern part of the state, and in Lebanon, is it?
Yeah.
And in Lebanon and Nashua and Manchester, and there's other organizations in the state that handle this in other parts of the state. And we'll also put up a link to the DHHS website, which lists, if you go to Kinship Navigator on the DHHS website of Health and Human Services, you can also find a list for something in your area. So, well, thank you for listening to Senior Speak. Thank you, Beth, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you, and we'll see you next time.